Morning, everybody. My name is Dan Thomas. I'm the Chief Communication Officer from the United Nations Global Compact, and we are here in the UN SDG Media Zone, live on the third day of the Web Summit here in Lisbon, Portugal. And I am here to moderate a panel about AI for good. How can AI save lives on the roads? And I'm very pleased to be joined by this distinguished panel. To my left, Bryn, the Chief Sustainability Officer from Roborace and the Director of the Autonomous Drivers Alliance. Thank you for joining us. Lucas de Grassi, CEO of Roborace and a Formula E racing world champion. Thank you for coming. And last but not least, my colleague from the United Nations, Werner, the Head of Strategic Engagement for the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union. Thank you so much for joining us. So first of all, Fred, why don't I start with you? What is AI for good, artificial intelligence for good? How can AI help advance the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, thank you, Dan, first of all, for inviting me. And also, I'd like to congratulate you for putting such a good spotlight on the SDGs at the Web Summit. So that's really amazing. And, the AI for Good Global Summit is very much aligned with that vision of trying to basically identify practical applications of AI and how they can be used to advance sustainable development goals. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can't do that at all. We can't do that by ourselves. So we bring as many people to the table as possible. So these are 37 UN partners, industry, top AI experts, artists, and even race car drivers, which is why we're here today.
Yeah, that's great. Bryn, tell us about Roborace. I mean, why was Roborace created?
Well, it certainly wasn't just to replace Lucas. That's not really our focus, If you look at where the industry is going, it's electric, connected, and autonomous are the three mega trends for the automotive industry. So it's really about how motorsport can lead that innovation, can become and continue to be a place where technology is developed, the boundaries are pushed, the public are engaged in that debate.
Yeah. And Lucas, you are a racing driver, a Brazilian racing driver. You've competed in the all-electric Formula E championship for Audi. Tell us about high performance and high performance autonomous electric supercar. What does that have to do with this global agenda?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here representing Roborace together with Bryn. And Web Summit is always a great place to share ideas and innovations about the future. The importance, first of all, let's talk some facts. Yeah? Between 20 and 50 million people, they get hurt on the roads a year, and 1.25 deaths. Most of these injuries, most of these deaths are caused by human error. And motorsport is a laboratory for all the technologies which will make the car faster in a way, but also safer, like ABS braking, like seat belts, like all types of crash tests and structural tests and so on. So the next big thing in safety will be autonomous driving. You take the human element out. There will be no more drunk driving because there will be no more driving in the future. So what we're doing with Roborace is exactly that. We want to have to use the racetrack as a laboratory. We don't want to replace the human driver in racing. We want to create a different path in which creates a laboratory for autonomous to improve these technologies faster in this environment for lately be applied in the roads. So we hope in the future that we can make the roads much safer.
Thank you.
It's great at the moment because we were able to do a benchmark against Lucas. I think it was just last week. Yeah. We were doing a challenge on the racetrack. Lucas sets a time, and then we see how close the AI can get. I think it got closer this time than ever before.
So you're saying that humans can still drive faster than autonomous vehicles? Is that?
Depends. That's a very tricky question. On average, humans are already much worse drivers than AI. So, but we're talking about maybe the top 0.00001% of the drivers, which are the top racing drivers of the world. They are still faster. It's almost like any computer game can beat me at chess, but he needed Deep Blue to beat Kasparov. So, or AlphaGo to beat Lee Sedol. So talking about very, very high benchmarks. But I truly believe that in the next 5 to 10 years, it's just a matter of time for AI to be safe, to be faster than the human drivers in general. And if we can do that, and if we can compile, imagine that if you could compile all the best characteristics of every racing driver in the world, from rally to Formula 1 to Formula E, into a single algorithm that will take your kid to school. So that's how the future will look like, and that's why we think it's going to be so much safer to be inside an autonomous car, and that's what we're doing with Roborace, or part of what we're doing with Roborace at least.
Yeah. So, Fred, at the UN, we're not normally credited for engaging really at the cutting edge of technology. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved, how ITU is leading this conversation and bringing this towards this sustainable development agenda.
Well, basically, when we created the AI for Good Global Summit, we didn't want another talk shop. I mean, there's enough events out there that talk about, dystopian future, general AI, what's the world going to look like in 30 years. And we're looking at a 10-year timeline. So the way we think about it is, solutions that we identify and find today will need maybe 2 or 3 years to develop, a few more years to scale, and then you'll have some kind of deployment, and if you're lucky, you might see some kind of impact by 2030. So there's a sense of urgency behind the Global Summit and all the participants that are looking at the solutions that exist today, what can we do today, and the summit is really designed to generate AI for good projects on the spot. And some examples of these, like practical hands-on projects. So the 2018 summit created a collaboration with the World Health Organization to develop an evaluation and benchmarking framework for the testing of AI for health algorithms. So for example, there's if you develop a new drug, you have to spend $10 billion, put it through the FDA, maybe 10 years later, it's approved, right? But you have lots of useful AI for health applications where to detect maybe skin cancer with your phone or diabetes or what have you. And these are going up on the iTunes store daily with no kind of oversight or any idea if it's good or bad. So we've developed a benchmarking framework to basically evaluate the efficacy of these algorithms. And I would say the next big project that came out of the summit was thanks to Roborace and Bryn. They came to the summit this year, and there was a call from the participants from industry for safety and performance standards to basically create the equivalent of a driving license for autonomous vehicles, if you will. And Bryn's been behind the whole. He's the mastermind behind that. And I think Lucas is maybe the visible face of that, being on the cutting edge, the front line of motorsport. And it's just amazing that they come to the UN and to UN as a platform to create international collaboration and standards in this area of work.
That's great.
I was going to say, Lucas is actually a UN ambassador. So it's the role that he took on earlier this year. So kind of got the sustainability and the road safety thing covered in what we're doing, and it's really important, I think, to both of us. So.
Absolutely. And why did you develop Roborace? How did that idea come about, and how has it developed over time?
Well, I think, as I said at the beginning, we're really focused on the new technology that's happening in automotive and how to bring that technology to the public. Yeah. The best way to engage the public in the debate around technology is to have an entertaining sport, something that they can watch and enjoy, and then you can communicate to them about the messaging in the background. Right. Yeah, Formula E is exciting because it's actually motorsport, but it has a very key sustainability message behind. Right. It's been very similar with Roborace, what we're looking to develop. Right. So. And I think the work that we've done with the ITU over the last 2 years has been incredible. So the UN providing this AI for Good forum. I don't know where AI for evil is, but we're certainly on the AI for Good side. Right. Now we're looking to announce here a focus group for AI for assisted and automated driving. So that initiative has really come from our perspective in motorsport. How do we regulate the technology, but also regulate the drivers and driver behaviour? Yeah. And then how do we take that driver behaviour monitoring that we've looked at and apply that to the roads so that we can ensure that the AI on the road is always safe, it's always driving in the correct manner. Yeah.
And Fred, where do the principles come from behind AI for Good? I mean, how do you decide whether it's sort of good or not so good?
Well, I think that's decided by the people who we bring to the platform. So, you know, the ITU, we're working with 37 UN partners, and the idea is that we connect problem owners with AI innovators. So problem owners could be UN agencies, NGOs, universities, people who have a very good understanding of the problems on the ground, but they might not know the technical solutions or the applicable AI or machine learning tools and algorithms that could be used to solve that problem. At the same time, you have a lot of experts from Silicon Valley and top universities who are developing cutting-edge AI solutions, but they have no idea what it takes to roll out a solution across, say, 50 African countries. With all the challenges that involves, whether it's just basic things like electricity or water or political issues, financial issues, and what have you. So what we're trying to do is create this matchmaking platforms where problem owners and innovators can come together and work together on these solutions, and providing that context is really important, because right now that context is missing, and there's a big mismatch between technical solutions and actually real world problems on the ground, of which the UN, I believe, has a very good understanding.
Thank you. And Lucas, so much of racing is about the personalities, the stories of the drivers themselves. So how will we see that story change as autonomous vehicles become... will the vehicles have their own characteristics that appeal to the mass public?
Yeah, they could. They could be avatars, they could be gamification of a personality or few personalities. But again, using the analogy of chess, it's not that because there is a machine that can beat all humans, that humans don't play chess with each other. Right. So with the motorsport, it will be the same. Even if you create a master algorithm that is the best driver of the world, people will still see, and still exists, driver racing against drivers, like go-karting, F1, Formula E. It'll always be about the driver, about the human aspect. But what is interesting about Roborace, it creates a new branch. It creates a new, probably a very, very, still not recognized by the motorsport industry, but probably the biggest new branch that you can attract investment technologies, companies into motorsport. So we'll only increase the sport, not threaten it.
I was going to say, if you look at the work that we're doing in motorsport, we've now created an R&D platform for this technology. So we've engaged with a lot of universities around the world, and a lot of that code is now being open sourced, so it becomes available. So when we talk about motorsport driving innovation, it's open innovation as well, and that's pretty unique in most motorsport categories.
It never happened before, and we are in. So what happened in the last 10 years in the automotive industry? It changed it more than it did the previous 100. And the next 10 will be even more changes to come. So the automotive industry will suffer with less cars being sold, with no ownership or less ownership of mobility, use mobility as a service, like Uber, like all these apps, or even the electric scooters and bikes that you see around. So mobility will be much more of a flowing trend than only having cars or motorcycles, or this will revolutionize to electric, and then will revolutionize to autonomous. Like it will make, I was looking at the goals here, and will make the mobility much more accessible. An autonomous electric car will have the total operational cost per kilometer on around 1/10 of the current car. So actually we democratize personal mobility in a way that will give access to poorer people to much better mobility in general. So the implications are huge. What we're doing is just the tip of the iceberg, but the ramifications are huge.
Yeah, we normally focus on goal 3 in terms of the lives lost, and then, as Lucas was saying, on 11 for sustainable cities. Inequality is also a key thing for us.
Right.
And if you look at where the road deaths are occurring around the world, these more than 85% are in low and middle income countries. So a lot of the technology that's being deployed and developed in America, in Europe, in China, at the moment, we need to find a way to make that more cost effective. We need to find a way to actually get that technology to where those accidents are occurring. Yeah, motorsport can play a key role in helping that development, but the cost of the equipment, the cost of the software, that needs to come down significantly to impact global road deaths.
Well, Bryn, Lucas, Fred, thank you so much for joining us here in the SDG Media Zone. As I said, we're live at the Web Summit in Lisbon, Portugal. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, learning more about AI for good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.